Welcome to Baz Travels. After driving 14,826 kilometers through 24 states and Washington, D.C., I've seen rocket launches to the Grand Canyon and Hoover Dam. I've explored Route 66, ghost towns, deserts, snow, and beaches on both coasts. From Vegas casinos to Alcatraz, the White House to Hollywood. Join me for a journey of the ordinary and the extraordinary.
Loading destination. Simulation starting in 3, 2, 1. To look around, move your phone or tablet. Click and drag if on a computer or move your head if using a VR headset. Please like and subscribe.
Welcome to episode 72. We're continuing our look around San Francisco. We're beginning our walk on Alcatraz Island, leaving the dock and making our way towards the main prison complex at the top of the hill. The first structure we pass is Building 64, often called the Barracks Building. Completed in 1905, it's the oldest surviving building on the island. When the Army still occupied Alcatraz, this was home to officers, soldiers, and their family. In those early decades, the island functioned less like a prison and more like a small, self-contained fort. Families grew gardens on balconies, children took the launch across to the school in the mainland, and supplies arrived weekly by barge. When the US Department of Justice converted the island into a federal penitentiary in 1934, the Army families moved out, and this same building was repurposed into apartments for prison guards and their families. Roughly 60 families lived here at one time, separated from the inmates by only a few hundred meters of rock and wire. Ahead of us is the arched Sally Port and Guardhouse, part of the original Civil War era fortress. In military terms, a sally port is a controlled gateway, a narrow passage that allowed troops to move between defensive walls while keeping intruders out. During the fort years, soldiers carrying rifles would have guarded this exact spot. The thick brick and granite you see above were designed to withstand cannon fire from potential naval threats that never actually came. As we continue under the arch, the road begins to climb. This lower slope once held several layers of military prison buildings, collectively known as the Lower Prison Complex. By the 1860s, Alcatraz had already become the primary military detention center on the West Coast. The Army built 7 separate confinement structures here, ranging from wooden stockades to stone cell blocks. These facilities housed deserters, insubordinate soldiers, and occasionally Confederate sympathizers captured during the Civil War. Later, during World War I, the island held conscientious objectors, men who refused the draft on moral or religious grounds. To the right, near the retaining walls, are the remnants of family housing from the federal period. When the Bureau of Prisons took over in the 1930s, Alcatraz still needed a permanent staff, so it became a tiny residential community. There were about 300 civilians living here at its peak: guards, clerks, mechanics, their spouses and children. They had a small grocery store, a social hall, and movie nights in the recreational building. Children recalled that it felt normal. They played baseball, rode bikes, and waved to city lights across the water, though the parents always reminded them not to wander near the main prison. The path bends upwards past the Alcatraz Gardens, a rare touch of colour against grey concrete. These terraced plots began with army officers' wives in the late 1800s who imported hardy species from Europe and South Africa. Prison staff continued the tradition. Some inmates assigned to garden duty found peace tending these plants under supervision. Decades of abandonment left the terraces overgrown until restoration began in 2003. Today, many of the same succulents and geraniums you see were propagated from surviving roots more than a century old. Just above the gardens sits the island's morgue, built in 1910. Despite its grim purpose, it was rarely used. The bodies of those who died here, soldiers, inmates, or residents, were usually taken across the bay to San Francisco. The morgue contains only 3 holding niches and a single marble autopsy table, preserved exactly as it was left. It's one of the few pure remnants of the early 20th century military era still intact. The road then twists upwards towards a plateau where the main prison stands, constructed between 1910 and 1912 as the new military prison. It was refitted in 1934 to meet federal standards for maximum security. Reinforced concrete, steel cell fronts, and electric-operated doors made it the most secure penitentiary in the country. From here, everything about the island changed. Alcatraz shifted from a defensive fort and military outpost into the nation's most feared civilian prison. We finished this climb at the entrance to the cell house, the point where every tour begins and where the island's most famous stories truly start.
Comme à tout, même dans la maison, on voit qu'il y avait le propre nickel.
That concludes today's episode. A journey through more than a century of Alcatraz history, from officers' barracks and military fortifications to the gardens, morgue, and finally the gates of the main prison itself.
Simulation terminated. Please comment, like and subscribe.